Welcome back to For Perspective. I'm Bill, and I've got your weekly dose of tech news. This is Season 2, Episode 3 of the For Perspective podcast, and we will jump right in. Some heavy news to start it off. Bloomberg Technology reported this past week, graduation disappointment, AI impacts entry-level job market is the headline. They're reporting that people graduating college in America are having a tougher time finding jobs because AI and automation is taking the place of a lot of those entry-level jobs, especially in tech and finance. And we've seen the latest job numbers come out from Yahoo Finance. There were less jobs added than expected. And Dan Meisler wrote an article that I found on TLDR called "I'm Worried It Might Get Bad." Now, I can be pretty negative at times. This story is also pretty doom and gloom heavy, but I do agree the job market doesn't look very good. As an engineer, mechanical engineer, I thought for a while software seemed like the place to go next. Jobs were booming. All these big tech companies have record earnings, and then the layoffs started happening, and they've slowed a little bit, but I mean, you've seen even companies like Microsoft laying people off just this year, and it's not small numbers, like 15,000 people or something like that at Microsoft. That's not a tiny number, and those are real people whose lives are impacted because maybe AI took their job. It seems like also reading articles on Yahoo Finance that consumers are getting worried. More people are concerned about a recession happening, and consumer debt is at an all-time high, while the job market is struggling, while AI is threatening a whole class of workers that we now call knowledge workers. Pretty much, everybody that went to college and got a degree and is working a white-collar job. All while, companies only care about increasing the share price and making sure that Wall Street is happy. So I'll give you a little tidbit. This is something that clicked in my head recently. My wife and I had to drive to New Jersey for a family wedding from where we are in Connecticut. It was about a 3-hour drive. That turned into about a 4.5-hour drive, both on the way there and on the way back. We left on a Thursday morning during the middle of the week, like 10 a.m. on a Thursday. And the amount of traffic and the amount of people on the roads, I was thinking, why aren't all these people at work? And then I thought a little bit more, and then I said, and how the hell do they afford payments on these $70,000 SUVs? Everywhere I go, I see people driving really expensive cars because cars are expensive. Even just normal vehicles now are really expensive. You can't get away even buying a Toyota Camry for a reasonable price at this point. But all I see is big 5, 6, 7-seater SUVs on the road that all pretty much start at that $60,000 price point. With the amount of information that we're seeing, the job numbers, the turmoil in the markets, I really worry about the state of the economy. And how does this relate to tech, Bill? Well, a lot of these jobs are in tech, but a lot of people that have jobs, like me, use their money to buy tech. So if there is a slowdown in the labor force, salaries remain stagnant, inflation keeps up, then we buy less products, then the companies have lower profits, and then this whole thing gets a lot worse. So I'll link that article in the description down below. It was a really good read, and there's a lot of good points in there. I don't really agree with everything that is said in there, but I enjoyed the read, and it's a very well put together piece. All right, on to something that's near and dear to me, productivity. So The Notion CEO was on the Decoder podcast on the Verge this past week as well. And I've been using the Snipped app to listen to podcasts, take highlights, and put those into Readwise. So I haven't given this a full listen yet, but this is what I love about Snipped so far is you can go in there and see some of the highlights. AI generates it, tries to pull out moments that it thinks are best, and then coordinates with what everybody else who's listened to the episode has snipped. So it gives you kind of an idea of what you can expect. And I took 3 takeaways there. The first insight, it says, is solve fragmentation, not with more apps. So I actually do think that Notion is becoming a really good do-it-all application. As somebody who likes Apple Notes and Apple Reminders, basically all of the Apple productivity apps, Notion is building a pretty compelling system to rival some of the things like, Google and Apple. They now have their own mail app that admittedly, needs a little bit of work. It only works with Gmail email accounts at the moment, but I'm sure they'll get there and they'll add other emails. They have a calendar app that you can do Apple Calendar or Google Calendar with, so that's really good. And then, of course, Notion, like the main glue. Notion, you can have it do whatever you want it to do. It can be a simple notes app. You can have a really complex setup in it. I'm trying to build the system that I use in Apple Notes and Reminders into Notion to see if something like that would be feasible for me to switch to longer term. There are some benefits to using Notion. If you get a team, collaboration features are really good. And now Notion AI can even help you build some of the databases and connections, which is one of the biggest friction points for me in Notion, was actually just putting together the system the way that I want the system to work and putting the time in to make sure it works the right way. AI can help me with that. And the CEO agrees. The next sort of snip that was from this podcast was called Let AI Glue Your Workspace. So use AI to do the building blocks, stick it all together, and automate your workplace setup. They've definitely made a lot of headway with the Notion AI, building it on top of, I think, ChatGPT. And it seems to work really well. And then lastly is that AI makes small teams feel bigger, or act bigger is what it says. But I feel this personally because I'm just one person working here. So I do use AI to help me with tasks like this podcast. I have a recurring task in ChatGPT that's pulling news articles for me, so I can go in and look at the daily news, basically, pick out a few articles. By pick out, copy and paste it directly into the note that I'm using to make this show right now. So I agree with that sentiment. I think I'm going to have to go give this a full listen. And stay tuned. I'm probably going to make a Notion video here on the channel shortly. And then a little bit of fun this week. There's some billionaire nonsense going on. Elon Musk was mad at Apple because of the App Store ranking of Grok. Apple then responded to his kind of antitrust claim, said, they're really not doing anything out of the norm. Then Sam Altman hopped in on Twitter, clapped back at Elon, saying, you're basically a hypocrite. You do the same thing on X. Then people started tagging Grok in Sam Altman's post, asking if Elon was a hypocrite. And then Grok basically said, yep, he is. So what a time to be alive. I just thought that was funny. A bunch of billionaires arguing and then an AI jumping in the mix too. Just kind of an interesting, fun story for the week. And then remember a few months ago when I talked about there's a lawsuit with Google right now, basically trying to force them to break up some of their products, saying they have a monopoly on things. One of them was Google Chrome, in that they're basically saying that Google needs to sell Chrome off. I would be absolutely shocked if this lawsuit ever goes through and they say that Google has to sell Chrome or any part of its business that it created because it now has a monopoly. I think that would end in years and years of litigation, but now there's an offer on the table. Perplexity, the AI app, AI startup, I don't know what you call them, AI business, I guess, has put in an offer to buy Google Chrome for $34.5 billion. And I don't remember who posted it, so I'm sorry. I'll give you credit if I remember, but I saw somebody post a funny thing like, you want to pay $35 billion for Google Chrome, you can download it for free. Perplexity has recently joined the browser space. They have a Comet browser is what it's called. It's in beta, it's invite only, has some neat AI features. Steven Robles did a video about it that I'll link in the description as well if you want to check that out. But interesting things here at play for the future of the browser space. It doesn't, Google isn't acting like they're going to lose this lawsuit and have to sell off. They're still actively adding features to Chrome, getting all these updates. Gemini is in there, starting to work a little bit better as kind of an assistant. And I'm sure that's why Comet wants to buy Chrome, is they're building their own browser with their own AI assistant. It'd just be easier if they owned the code base, to the Chromium browser in order to do that. And then a little bit more good news. 9to5Mac ran an article this week about the blood oxygen readings being added back to the Apple Watch. So if you remember, this was probably a year ago. There was a lawsuit between the company who made the blood oxygen sensor and Apple that basically forced Apple to turn the feature off for new sales. So people who owned watches that had the blood oxygen feature, like the Apple Watch Ultra 2 that I have here, didn't lose access to it. But if you went and bought a new Apple Watch after this specific date, it was disabled in the software. And somehow Apple has found a way around this lawsuit, I guess. This is something that I do use with Athletic. I check the data in Athletic basically every morning to see my recovery metrics during sleep, one of which happens to be blood oxygen level. And the data's not super interesting. It doesn't vary wildly, but it's nice that it has the sensor. You basically paid for the feature and you have it back now if you had bought one of those watches after this date. So that's iOS 18.6.1 and watchOS 11.6.1. So, go check your devices. If you need to update, you can get that feature back if you haven't updated yet. And a couple more AI stories here. Ars Technica ran one that says GPT-5 beats GPT-4o in their blind testing. And kind of the reason that this was in here was I was unaware of all the internet drama on ChatGPT-5. I don't have a lot of crazy systems set up. I'm not using an API. I don't have agents running in the background, doing a whole lot of stuff for me. I use the web app or the app on the computer or the app on your phone to input my queries into ChatGPT. And I happened to hop on the Reddit for OpenAI and ChatGPT, and these subreddits are filled with people complaining about the output of GPT-5, how bad it is, how 4o was better. So I can see the frustration if you had systems that were running businesses on one of these older models, 4o or any of the other ones that they now call legacy models, because those systems were basically broken. Apparently, they didn't give any warning that they were going to do this, and GPT-5 is now the default model. I think I mentioned that last week. It, auto detects how much thinking and reasoning it needs to do, and basically, I think it's kind of using these models in the background, the older models. If you need something that's more lightweight or faster, it does that for you. So you don't have to go select the model. From a consumer standpoint, that's great. I hated the fact that I needed to select the model in order to do something. I didn't really fully understand all of the different models. The naming conventions were awful. But this might allow OpenAI on the back end to basically reduce costs, because probably a lot of the queries that are going into ChatGPT don't need to be on O3 or one of the big reasoning models. They could probably be handled with one of the smaller ones, lightweight, lower cost. So I'm assuming that that's kind of what the change was. That's a lot of what the complaints are online as well. But I really haven't found any issues with GPT-5 and the implementation of it. I actually like it a lot. And last time we talked about how like 90% of users aren't paying for ChatGPT. I think it was only 10% of customers are paying. So 90% of people that are using ChatGPT aren't going to notice this at all, or aren't going to be impacted by this at all. They're going to use the new model. They're going to take the response that it gives them, and they're going to run with it. Those people who are paying, that is unfortunate, but we're learning. This is a new space, new-ish company, right? There's bound to be some issues as they roll out new products. I'm sure they'll get better over time. And then the last thing, Sam Altman did an interview and says that AI is in a bubble. So even the founder of probably the biggest AI company, I don't know if they are or not, but call them the biggest AI company in my head, OpenAI, acknowledging that the valuations don't make any sense. OpenAI is raising money like gangbusters. It seems like they just keep having money poured into them. We talked about their financials last time and how, most people aren't paying. They're making boatloads and boatloads of cash, but it's unknown how much they're actually spending. I assume that they have to share these numbers with VC funding. I don't know how VC funding works, but I would guess if you're going to put like a couple $100 billion into a company, that you have seen their, how much money they're spending versus how much money they're earning. Maybe not. I don't know. So that was a whirlwind of tech news for the week. A lot going on in the tech and AI space as we head into the fall iPhone season. There are sure to be more here. So I've tried to stay away from the rumor mill. We've seen some issues with, rumor and leak sites lately. So when ChatGPT gives me articles that involve some of these leaks or rumors, I just don't even want to speculate. I can wait until the iPhone 17 lineup is announced and the features are out there to talk about them. I've, of course, seen the renders and what supposedly it's going to look like. And, I'll just take the stance of wait and see. But I think that's it for this week's episode of For Perspective. As always, thanks for watching. If you found me on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment if you can. Spotify, you should be able to engage and leave a comment as well. For Apple Podcasts, you didn't see any of this, you've just heard me. And you can leave me up to a 5-star review. I really appreciate any feedback that you have for me. Until next time, later.